It's time now for the best hour in MMA and combat sports, the Boomtown Pod. Join your hosts, Andrew Kahn and Cole Smith, as they break down the latest cards, the biggest news, and so much more. Now it's time for the Boomtown Pod.
That is right. It is time for the Boomtown Pod. It is another edition. Thank you once again for tuning in. I'm running solo today. Cole got a little busy at the gym. That's okay. These things happen. So nonetheless, I had to give him a shout out. If you want to order some sweet t-shirts, check out the Background Classic Boxing. Started in the basement. That's Cole's brand, Sandman Boxing System. Of course, they are one of our sponsors, and we absolutely love having them as part of our continuation of growing this podcast. So now with that being said, we need to show you guys our sponsors for the episode. That is right. You can check it down below. Blue Collar Media Group, Stellar Gear, and of course, Sandman Boxing System. Now with Stellar Gear, you can go onto their website, stellargear.ca, hit the / on that, hit Boomtown 10, and you're going to get 10% off your next purchase, courtesy of those fine folks out in Saskatoon. Dana and the crew have been repping it since day one. We absolutely love them. I can't tell you how many times I've bought clothes from them in the last little while, but it is a lot. So make sure to go and support those guys. We absolutely love them. And of course, Sandman Boxing System, like I said, if you're in the Saskatoon area and you're learning how to box and maybe it's your first go around at this, make sure to go check them out. They are absolutely incredible people, and they'll make sure that you do well. All right, let's get into this, guys. This is the week that was. It is sponsored, of course, by Stellar Gear, as I have stated. What a week it was. We had the UFC 276 take place. Of course, some people called it a snoozer of a card. It wasn't as eventful. And I'm going to break that down for you and tell you that's completely inaccurate from what we saw. Of course, we're going to kick things off with what we thought was going to be a trilogy. We thought it was going to be a war. It was pretty one-sided. Holloway versus Volkanovski 3. I put the caption, "Can we move on now?" because I think it is time that we do so. Now, with that being said, Volkanovski and Holloway threw hands. It was an incredible matchup. Volkanovski was just so much better than Holloway was, and it wasn't even close. Max Holloway is obviously known for how like just his tremendous striking more than anything. He is an explosive human being. His fights are typically insanely good, but this one just kind of fell flat for him. I don't know if his camp was ready for the game plan. It just wasn't the precise Max Holloway that we're so used to seeing, and Volkanovski took advantage of that, and Volkanovski was absolutely unbelievable in this performance. He was just better all around when it came to performance. When he was a better striker. He just angled Max down to the ground, couldn't really do anything. He just beat him up, and I don't know if anybody saw the cut that was on Max Holloway's face, but it was bad. It was real bad. Now, with that being said, I mean, this is the difference between what I saw in the Max in the previous fights and Max now. It's just like, honestly, he looks like a shell of his former self. Now, he's never been finished, which, again, this is another 5-round war. So with that being said, I mean, it's just absolutely incredible to see him continue to never be finished. But I honestly thought when I saw that cut that his corner should have stepped in and said, "Hey, like this is it. We can't go any farther than this because he's too beat up." And honestly, I wouldn't have disagreed with anything or any stoppage in that case if that would have happened. But nonetheless, yeah, man, that was a beatdown. Alex Volkanovski obviously going to be taken off. He looks like he's going to move up to 155 and challenge. He's called out Oliveira up there, so we'll see what happens there. Henry Cejudo was kind of floating backstage. I'll get into Henry Cejudo in a bit. He challenged Volkanovski. He has a ton of respect for him. They both kind of have that mutual admiration with each other. So we'll see what happens in that regard. But this was a total beatdown. 5 straight rounds. Volkanovski won it 50-45 in my eyes. It wasn't even close to the matchup that I was hoping for. I'm just hoping that Max Holloway takes some much needed time off. I don't know if he's 100%. Now, when I say that, the more that I was watching him and more that I watched the fight, even leading into the fight with the media and everything like that, it just seemed Max was a little off. he seemed kind of like ghostly in a weird sense, because Max is always a guy who brings it. Now, I just don't know if something happened before the camp or whatever it may be, but I mean, he just, didn't look like himself. Typically, I need Max Holloway throws punches and bunches, and maybe that's just how damn good Volkanovski is that he was able to hold him to that. So we will see what happens with Holloway's career. Volkanovski obviously going in a really great direction. I think pound for pound in the world right now, he's the number one in my books. It just, no one can beat him. It's just the streak that he's on is insane. Charles Oliveira, yes, he is on the streak as well, missed weight. So that's the differential between the two of them. But Volkanovski, I think pound for pound is arguably the greatest fighter in the world right now. Going into a very controversial fight, Sugar Sean O'Malley. We're all hyped to see it. I know a lot of people were taking on Pedro Munhoz, who's never been finished in his career. This one ended super unfortunately. I have rewatched the replay of the eye poke a couple of times now, and I've seen an HD eye poke, and I will tell you, from all things perspective, there's many of times in a fight where a referee will let the fighters know that, hey, you can't actually put your hand out there, you can't stick your finger out there and expect, if something happens where they get hit in the eye, it is the right to stop the fight. But after rewatching the replay, Pedro Munhoz was definitely poked in the eye. Sugar Sean O'Malley had his hand wide open. Palm was ready, came in, hit him right in the eye, and it folded his eye in. Now, I know it's a controversial take, and I know people are going to be upset about it. I hate the stoppage because I was so pumped about this fight. Sugar Sean finally getting somebody who's a ranked opponent. And I like Sugar Sean O'Malley a ton. I do. It lacked and it failed on a lot of aspects for me. That eye poke was super blatant, and I just wish that it's tough. I just wish it would have been a better fight overall. But congratulations to, I guess, the crowd who got to see a one-round performance. Nonetheless, I think Sugar Sean O'Malley and Pedro Munhoz will run this one back. Listen, Sugar Sean is a great fighter. I just got a little upset and a little pissed off by his antics online. Listen, dude, you didn't win the fight. It's a doctor stoppage. For you to say that you're 16-0 is absolutely banana lands. You're 15-0-1 with a no contest, technically speaking. I mean, it does remain as an undefeated record. There is one no contest that now is going to be a blemish on that. You're not 16-0, so enough with the Twitter post and stuff like that. I like fighters who, if they lose by accident, own up to it. They're humble about it. They don't want to be like, hey, listen, we didn't mean to end it that way. I hope we can run it back. And I've seen it a couple of times in the sport, obviously, but like, just to sit there and brag and say that you beat Munhoz, and then you go on your press conference and you go on a tirade about how you beat Pedro. No, you didn't, dude. You technically lost. So, I mean, there's that. And that didn't sit well with me. But for all intents and purposes, I think they're going to run this one back. I would expect it to see maybe at the end of the year. The December card would probably be my likelihood of when we probably see that one again. Or, Dana could just throw it in November. Who knows? But usually that year-end fight card, he likes to do a little bit of a blowout. So we'll see what happens there in that regard. I definitely want to see these guys run it back. I've had some hate and some criticism when it comes to Sean O'Malley. I'm a huge O'Malley fan. I am. I think he's one of the best fighters in the UFC and one of the most marketable guys that they have going for them right now. He's young. He just destroys everybody. I mean, that's just kind of who he is. And my hot take while I was rewatching that fight, I watched back and I said, I think he lost round one. Like, even without the eye poke, I thought Pedro was doing a little bit more. I thought he was a more, aggressive fighter. And I gave the round 10-9 to Pedro, even without the eye poke. And obviously, Dr. Stoppage makes it, relevant and irrelevant. Sorry. But I mean, it's kind of crazy that this is where we're sitting at this decision. But give it, I think, honestly, if we give it roughly maybe a week or two, I'm sure that we're going to get some kind of announcement that's going to get moved on to another card come into November, December. I think the guys will want a little bit of time. O'Malley's been on a bit of a tear. Munhoz has had some time off, so we'll see. UFC 276 also provided us probably one of the nastiest knockouts that we are going to see this year. When I say the card was boring, it just hadn't lived up to the hype. until this. Now, obviously, the last guest that we had on our podcast was none other than Smiling Sam Alvey. So thank you so much, Sam, for joining us. He literally was Team Strickland. And hey, listen, for all intents and purposes, I completely understand why he was on Team Strickland. It makes a ton of sense. Sean Strickland has been a problem and a matchup nightmare for so many people that finally he got, I want to say his just due, but he got finished. And that was it. I mean, that was the end of the situation for him. Alex P absolutely dominated him with a left hand that just landed flush. Now, Alex Pereira obviously has a win over Israel Adesanya. Now, it's not in MMA. It is in kickboxing. So we'll see, or Muay Thai, sorry. But we'll see if Alex P is the guy that is the one to dethrone Israel Adesanya. Is he starting to lap the division now? He's starting to beat everybody twice. It's kind of like the Usman effect at welterweight. So, I mean, Alex P to me is intriguing. Alex P has a very dominant left hand. Everybody was kind of discrediting how good he is. I think we're sleeping on how good he is. I really do think we're sleeping on how good Alex Pereira really, really is. And for Sean Strickland, I don't know, man. I don't know what your game plan was. Obviously, we know Sean Strickland likes to come out. He'll throw a couple leg kicks. He'll throw some quick punches. But his defense has always been kind of suspect. But I don't think many people took advantage of, how bad his defense really is until this last weekend. I mean, Strickland had no hands up. There was no sort of formation of guard. There was no formation of blocking punches or anything like that. It was literally just a man asking to get knocked out. I mean, Alex Pereira is a very well-rounded fighter. Obviously, he has to be if he was in Muay Thai. And Strickland didn't give him the credit that he deserves, and he got murked. And I mean murked hard. So, with that being said, oh, man, Alex P. Give me that Izzy and Alex P. matchup. That's the one that we all want, right? I think we can all agree that that's the matchup that we're all looking forward to. Sean Strickland, he's an interesting character. Don't get me wrong. In due time, Alex Strickland will probably have 4 or 5 really intriguing matchups. Do I think he's ever going to break championship title contention kind of guy? I don't know. I really don't know. At this point, it's a wait and see kind of thing. Sean Strickland, again, like I said, is a very smart, very well-rounded fighter. He's going to do well. Realistically, he is probably one of the better performers in that division, but Alex Pereira, just matchup nightmare. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Alex P does, and I'm looking forward to what Strickland does. Now, obviously, with that being said, we got into it. Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier was our title fight main event. Sleeper. I don't care what anybody says. Sleeper. And here's what I have wrong with this fight. I love Izzy's strategy. I understand where he is as a fighter. If his camp is reporting that they don't want him to take shots to the head and be a protected fighter, and he did that. He displayed tremendous defense. I will not take that away from Izzy in any aspect. But where's the killer instinct from before? Where's that guy that fought Anderson Silva? Where's that guy that had the absolute breakdown and beatdown on Robert Whittaker? It's like it's gone. It's like we get this boring, stale guy who's arguably one of the most explosive fighters ever. And he just doesn't seem to want to initiate as much as he did prior to. On the flip side of that, his opponent is 38 years old. Jared Cannonier has gone from the heavyweight division down to the light heavyweight division to the middleweight division, fighting at 185, which is incredible. That is a ton of credit to Jared Cannonier to make sure your body just holds through all of that weight cut, first and foremost. And here's the issue that I have with it. Jared Cannonier went into that fight knowing that he had to be the better fighter and wasn't. He was... How many times at 38 years old are you going to get another chance to be in a championship opportunity? Now, I say that, but he could be there next year. Just slowly up the basis that Izzy is now starting to lap people. Now, if Alex Pereira beats Izzy, then obviously Izzy gets the rematch. So we're looking at Cannonier maybe being 2-3 fights removed or away from being in that title fight contention again, which is just... It's bananas that he didn't give more. Jared Cannonier had to come out and fight the fight of his life, and he was flat. Now, you could credit Izzy for a tremendous defense and tremendous striking, but honest to God, Jared Cannonier came completely flat. It was just boring. The whole fight was boring. And I felt bad because there were so many people that were hyped up for this fight, myself included. We had been previewing this fight. We talked about it with Sam Alvey. And of course, he was giving us, he's like, hey, listen, Izzy's going to be the guy to win it. We all took Izzy. Don't get me wrong. I just thought Cannonier would be the guy who gives him a little bit of a fit. What happened? Nothing. Sleeper. Absolute sleeper. And if I was there, I would be asking for my money back because that fight was so damn bad. So to recap essentially what was going on in the first part of this card, O'Malley and Munhoz over by eye poke. That sucks. Holloway versus Volkanovski. Absolutely unbelievable. And then we go into that fight. Oh, geez, what a hit and miss card. I mean, overall in the night, we did go 3-1-1 because of the no contest. And so I'll take that on the side of, anything that was regarding this. So realistically, I mean, yeah, we move into a really weird era in that division because, again, I just think Alex P is probably going to be the guy who gets the number one contenders fight against Izzy. That's probably going to be Izzy's next matchup. And I think rightfully so. I mean, Piera slept the number 4 guy in that division. So, I mean, hey, do they give Alex P to Whitaker? Or Whitaker seems already like he wants to fight somebody else. And I don't know. It's a mess in that division. It's kind of reminding me of what the welterweight division used to be like before all these contenders really came out. And now the welterweight division is getting lapped too. So it's kind of like, what the hell is going on? One position I wouldn't want to be in is Dana White's trying to figure out who gets who. But as for Jared Cannonier, honestly, I really do hope that Jared Cannonier continues to climb. I hope that one day he's back in the championship fold. I think he's going to learn a ton from this. I thought he is a great fighter. He just fell flat. And at 38 years old, like I've stated, I just don't know how many times you're supposed to get a second opportunity when it comes to being in a championship fight. Again, Izzy and Alex P are going to face each other. So that means at least one fight, he's going to have to fight another guy. Maybe it is Whitaker. Maybe, who the hell knows who they throw it to Cannonier, but we shall see. So that kind of wraps up UFC 276 talk. We're going to move into our next subject, which is, of course, Paul versus Fury. That is Jake Paul, the one that everyone can't stand, versus Tommy Fury. Hey, listen, I was eating it. I heard Tommy Fury on his socials talking about how he was coming to America and his camp is signing off on the contracts and all this other shit. And now we're not getting it, man. It's off again. When is enough? Like, when does this sideshow end? Right? Like, I mean, at this point, I get it. Jake Paul knew what he was getting himself into. Tommy Fury is overseas. Right now, things are a colossal fuck when it comes to what's going on over there, right? Like, let's face it, international travel requires a lot of stipulations. Now, when they announced this fight was going to take place on August 6th, I was like, okay, that gives it enough time for the UN to give him a little bit of permission to go take this fight, go down to LA or wherever the hell they're holding this thing and set it up. And I mean, Tommy Fury went to his Instagram account and said, I'm coming. And now a week later, Tommy Fury's off the fight card. What? Like, at what point is enough? Like, I mean, we've been teeing this up. We've been talking about this. Anytime a Logan Paul announcement or Jake Paul announcement gets made, you got to talk about it because they sell they sell seats, man. They put asses in the seats. And for this to be as hit and miss as it has been is driving me absolutely bananas. So with that being said, we got a new opponent for Jake Paul. He's going to fight Hassan Rahman Jr., sporting a 12-1 record. He just lost his last fight. But hey, this is a legitimate boxer. Somebody who has 12 finishes, 7 of them being by standing knockout. So, with that being said, Jake Paul is still going to go ahead and is still going to face a really good boxer, which is what we all want to see. We want to see him take on the best competition that there is. Let's not kid ourselves. We want Jake Paul to get knocked out. Everybody in the fucking world wants to see Jake Paul get knocked out. And we are finally going to get the opportunity to see that happen. Now, Hassam, like I said, just coming off of his last fight was a loss. He has been almost what you would call perfect to that point, 12-1. Jake Paul is getting a legitimate boxer, a guy who can move. I was watching some of his stuff. He's just got a work ethic like none other. It's just insanely amazing to see. So, nonetheless, we're not getting Jake Paul. We're not getting Tommy Fury. If that fight ever gets announced and it actually fucking happens, I'll recap it. I will never preview it and talk about it again because I'm just so sick of talking about this fight that's just never going to happen. With that being said, I also want to say congratulations to Logan Paul, who seems to be done with the boxing world now. I say that lightly. He's probably going to come back at some point. But he has signed a contract with the Worldwide Wrestling Entertainment Company, whether known as WWE. So that is good. He performed at WrestleMania this year, and I was surprised. Logan looked like a natural wrestler. He's got the build, he's got the charisma, he's got the physique. He's kind of like The Miz. Everybody fucking hated The Miz because he was a reality superstar. Turned out pretty damn good for him in WWE. So I'm sure that he's had some influence, of course, from that aspect. Logan's one of the biggest YouTubers in the world. His podcast does numbers that I could only dream of. So for him to sign with the WWE is a really big deal, and I'm very happy to see it. They kind of had a behind-the-scenes thing, and he's joking with Triple H and Steph and this new regime. Obviously, Vince being in some trouble as a promoter and stuff. So, man, I'm looking forward to him performing. I really am. I think he's good for the business and so on. But yeah, when it comes to Paul versus Fury, we're never going to see it. So until then, until they fight the brakes and beat the shit out of each other, and we get the chance to recap it, I'm completely done with that fight. With that being said, let's get right into our next segment. It's called Into the Future, and now this is sponsored by Sandman Boxing System. As I stated earlier in the podcast, if you'd missed the intro, check it. Those are the t-shirts that they have are releasing. Classic boxing, start to the basement. It's awesome. I absolutely love the design. I was there when the first Sandman Boxing System started, and I have done a couple of classes myself. I will tell you this: Cole knows how to kill you physically, mentally, and then you love him for it afterwards, even if you puke. I'm gonna go on the record and tell you that I definitely spewed. So thank you, Cole, for that. Nonetheless, let's get into this. This is Into the Future, where we take a look at what's going up and what's coming up next. So with that being said, UFC 277, we've got the rematch. Juliana Pena taking that title away from Amanda Nunes. We always thought Amanda Nunes would walk off into the sunset, never lose that title. Well, guess what, folks? That happened. Juliana Pena defeated Amanda Nunes, and now we're seeing the rematch. I wish Cole was on here because I would talk all day about how I think both these girls are each other's kryptonites, but I think the rematch, the strap is going to go back to Amanda Nunes. I think she learned a lesson. You can't sleep on people who are pretty damn good in there. Now, she has beaten the who's who of that division. She's basically lapped everyone. Forced Ronda to retire. Said, see you later. Miesha Tate, chump change. See you later. 15 other women to come on? Yeah, see you later. That's how good Amanda Nunes was. But Juliana Pena always wanted her. Always wanted that matchup and knew that she could beat her. And she did. So now we're getting the title match rematch at UFC 277. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Amanda Nunes finishes this in the second round. And I don't think it's going to be close. Juliana Pena did something strategic in that last fight, and that was angle off Nunes. What I have learned about Amanda Nunes is she is so good at adjusting the next camp to something that she failed on. She's lost before, folks. It's not like it's the first time she's lost. So go out there and watch some of her rematches after she loses. It's a beatdown. It's an absolute beatdown. So yes, I am looking forward to this matchup. Give me Nunes, second round. I think I was looking at odds makers, and it was looking like if I take that bet with a TKO finish, which I expect is probably going to happen, you're looking at plus 670. So that's a lot of house money. Sign me up for that. Also on UFC 277, we got a interim bantamweight title fight. Brandon Moreno taking on Kai Kara France. This one's going to be fun. If there's a fight that I have circled off on this card that I think is going to be fight of the night, It is this one right here. Brandon Moreno taking on Kai Kara-France. Brandon Moreno obviously having some wars, and I mean wars with Deiveson Fierro. Those were great fights. Kai Kara-France is coming off knocking out Cody Garbrandt. That's a huge win for him. This one is going to be explosive. And of course, I don't like using the term interim titles. I just wish they would just scrap it and whoever wins this gets the championship fight. I think the interim title thing is a little used at this point. But Brandon Moreno taking on Kai Kara-France, this is going to be an explosive matchup because both of them are just stand and bang guys who are tough as hell. Both of them. And so honestly, for me to split this, I have no idea. I think Brandon Moreno is just pissed off in a really bad way that he lost to Deiveson Fierro. And Kai Kara-France is on this tear right now. So it's like, it's going to be so aggressive, and I'm so pumped up for this. It should be a really, really good fight. I'm saying this is a 50K bonus type of fight. If you see it, it's going to be a finish for sure. And you know what's crazy? I'm going to roll with Kai Kara-France. What I saw out of him, and people call me crazy because Brandon Moreno is a former champion, but Kai Kara-France is just so fucking good. He's nuts. The dude's nuts. He comes at you the whole time. Bang, 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 bang. It's punches and bunches, and he doesn't slow down. Like, this guy's cardio is insane. And what I saw with Brandon Moreno against Fierro in that title fight, he looked reserved. He knew that he could beat him, but he just looked a little flat. And Kai Kara-France hasn't done that yet. Kai Kara-France is hungry. Beating Brandon Moreno and then getting to fight Deiveson Fierro is huge for Kai Kara-France. So with that being said, Kai Kara-France is the underdog in this fight. So far from what I'm seeing, about that 220 range. So I'm going to roll with it. I'm definitely going to roll with the 220 underdog. It might be one of those split things that happens later on because it's a very unpredictable fight. But give me Kai Kara-France at plus money right now. If you're locking in some bets at 220, I am about that. Moving on to our other fight on UFC 277, we have got Anthony Lionheart-Smith taking on the one and only Mr. Ankalaev. And this fight is going to be bananas too. UFC 277 shaping up to be a pretty underrated and probably an underappreciated card. I'm really looking forward to this matchup. Anthony Smith has just been kept proving me wrong. He went on a bit of a schneid where he lost a couple fights in a row, and now he's won a couple in a row. And I'm like, there's the Lionheart-Smith that I knew. The guy who was finishing Legends Row of everybody. But then he got Islam Ankalaev. Ankalaev is unbelievable. It seems lately all Russian fighters are just on this tear. And it's true. Khabib trains with all of these guys. You know, just produces killers. So we'll see what happens. I love Lionheart. I love the guy who he is. Sam Alvey on our last podcast gave us a great breakdown of who Anthony Smith is as a human being. And for all intents and purposes, I like him as a fighter. I like Anthony Smith to win this fight and probably gets a title fight. I think whoever wins this matchup gets either the number one position or a number one title fight or contenders fight, or ends up being in the situation where he is the number one contender. Man, Anthony Smith, and this is going to be a fight you guys don't want to miss. It's going to be a spectacular one. Moving on to Bellator news. Patricio Pitbull. I was really looking forward to this fight against Sydney Outlaw. Sydney 16-4, coming off a huge win, taking on Patricio Pitbull, obviously winning back his title. I was pumped about this fight, and it is done. Patricio Pitbull is injured. He was injured during camp, which really, really, really sucks. And it's really, really unfortunate. So with that being said, Sydney Outlaw will be having a new opponent. I do believe they made the announcement today. I just haven't been with it. I apologize. I've been a little busy here today. But I can tell you that the one and only Kimbo Slice's son, Mr. Jackson Jr., will actually be moving up into the headlining position where he is it's one of those weird things, man. It's one of those weird things where honestly, the Jackson family's fun. Ferguson family's fun. This one sucks. I'm really upset that Patricio Pitbull is out against Sydney Outlaw. Patricio Pitbull is one of my favorite fighters outside of the UFC. In Bellator, he's literally the king of kings. He really is. He's the face that runs the place in that division. So I was happy to see him win. But Douglas Lima will go on and take on the one and only Kimbo Slice's son. Yes, Mr. Jackson Jr. He's the 4th ranked fighter. So that moves up to be the main attraction on that card. So I'll watch it. I'm not going to be as excited. Douglas Lima just seems to be all over the map as of late, from losing his championship to just kind of being all over. I have no idea what's going on with him, but I hope he is okay. This is a big fight for him. I mean, realistically, he's lost 3 fights in a row. So this is a very big fight, especially for a guy who I thought could go over to the UFC and do really well. I don't know anymore. Maybe losing that championship was a lot more soul-crushing than he would have predicted. Now, this is the news that I wanted to break into you guys, and this is why I'm here, because I am making a huge announcement right now. Pallas Athena's Women Fighting Championship 2 is officially here, ladies and gentlemen. That is right. Calgary, Alberta. Get ready. We're coming back August 27th. From what I can tell you at this moment, there are 12 confirmed fights. That much I know. And I am hella excited. Experiencing Pallas Athena's one with COVID restrictions was nuts enough. It was fun. It was a ton of fun. Now that things have been lifted, and you can have a full capacity crowd, ladies and gentlemen. Whoo! I was talking to Clayton, president and CEO. He's fired up. We are absolutely, as a company, he is beyond fired up for this. You guys do not want to miss this. I can guarantee there will be some kind of special guest. Last time we were greeted, and absolutely, it was just one of those things. It was tremendous. Getting to meet Chris Cyborg was huge. Just getting to know who she was as a fighter, or who she is as a fighter, was tremendous. Picking Sarah Kaufman's brain, the first ever Strikeforce women's bantamweight champion. Getting to pick her brain was insane too. These are the legends that attended this event. And I cannot wait for Pallas Athena Women's Fighting Championship 2. That comes place August 27th in Calgary, Alberta. I do believe they are just locking down the official commission and stuff like that too. I don't want to get too into it, but I can tell you this. It's coming back. Calgary, Alberta. Get your tickets while you can. They're going to be on sale, I'm assuming, very, very shortly. It's going to be on pay-per-view again as well. So if you missed this the first time, and you thought, hey, shit, that looked like a really good event, and maybe you can't travel. Maybe you don't want to travel. Hey, I don't blame you. Shit's crazy. You can order it on pay-per-view. It'll be back as well. So I can't wait to make my my second performance on pay-per-view. It was a ton of fun the first time. But yes, I can confidently tell you that Pallas Athena Women's Fighting Championship 2 is back. Calgary, Alberta, August 27th. Tickets will be available soon. We will have so much more information for you. Like I said, so far, from what I know, 12 confirmed fights. That's a lot. Shit ton of fights. And I'll be there for all 12 of them. There could be more, could be less. You never know. The other thing, too, is you got to take into consideration, just like these girls facing the first go-around, was that COVID really hurt a lot of it because it just was so hard to, COVID testing and rapid COVID testing and then all of this other stuff. But now that restrictions and mandates are over in our airports, hey, game on, baby. Let's fucking go. It's going to be a ton of fun. PAWFC 2, Calgary, Alberta. Like I said, August 27th. You don't want to miss it. Clayton and crew, Jenica, everybody is super excited. I cannot wait to be back, you guys. It is obviously a ton of fun. And the girls, the fights last time were just unbelievable. Some of the best women in MMA. That's what it's all about. The best women in mixed martial arts going head to head. It's just unbelievable. And I can't believe, and I'm so excited that Clayton is having me back. I was so nervous. I'll be honest. I've been in radio for 4 years. I was nervous. going into that card. I had an amazing crew with me, though. I had UFC veteran Felicia Spencer on our one side, and I had Big Brother Canada's own Ryan Ballantyne in the middle calling it. Like, it just made it so much easier that I could just be the guy who I always wanted to be, just a natural analyst. That's always what I've wanted to do. And getting to do that was just absolutely amazing. So, again, Pallas Athena Women's Fighting Championship 2. We'll be back. Calgary, Alberta. If I have any friends in that area, let's hook up. Come watch some fights. Let's have a good time. Can't wait to see you guys there. That's going to wrap it up for this week's podcast. A nice, quick little 40-minute podcast. I just wanted to get into it with everybody. Break down, of course, UFC 277. Break down UFC 276. Some Bellator news in there for you. Of course, couldn't go through a full podcast without mentioning Jake Paul or Tommy Fury or any of those names. And, of course, the big announcement, Pallas Athena Women's Fighting Championship 2 back on pay-per-view and in person. I cannot wait to see you guys there. If you have any other questions or anything like that, make sure to reach out to us. Also, congratulations to our winners as of late. Also, thank you for the push on the hats. We've gotten about 10 or 15 of them out now, which is awesome. It's a startup. I've never done any merch before. So the fact that we sold 15 hats, really, really appreciate your guys' support. I'm going to be doing another order. I'm thinking soon. Also, I'm going to do a line of t-shirts through Cole's company. They do absolutely amazing work. I can't wait to get that done for you guys too. The hat quality is off the chain. Everybody that I've talked to, thank you so much for the support on the hats. They love them so far. They fit amazingly. And they look damn good. I was quite proud of them. So, again, if you haven't seen them, make sure to check our socials. You can also find us on our socials. Where you might ask? Of course, you can find us at the Boomtown Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of those sweet places. You can definitely check us out there. You can also check us out by going to pawfc.com. Yeah, check it out because we're also part of their official media. So, with that being said, we're also going to have some women fighters. That's the other thing I want to talk about. We got some girls that are going to be on the show once again that are going to be dropping by the podcast. Cannot wait to have a couple fighters discussing their camps, discussing what their routines are, coming to Canada. Some of these girls have never been here before. So this is quite exciting. With that being said, that is going to wrap things up for the Boomtown Pod, your home for all things MMA. Thanks for tuning in. I will be back in a couple of weeks' time, I am sure, if not by next week. But remember, you can download our podcast anywhere that you can find them. Apple, Spotify, Anchor. Get the downloads in. Make sure to listen to it if you're on a 3-hour drive. This will help you take out 37 minutes of that exactly. So with that being said, cheers, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. You have yourselves a fantastic